criminal organizations. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. First, I'd like to welcome the newest member of our subcommittee, gentleman from Florida, Mr. Rutherford. Welcome. I look forward to working with you and other new members of the committee. As we begin the 150th Congress, let me be clear from the outset, I hope over the course of this Congress we can engage in thoughtful and productive conversations that lead to legislation and partnerships that will help secure our homeland. One of my goals this year as chair of the subcommittee is to drill down on the threat that an unsecure border poses to our fellow Americans, which will be the focus of our conversation today. At our next hearing, we'll hear from leaders of the Border Security Joint Task Forces, authorized by this committee last Congress, to examine the nation's counter-network approach to combating this threat. Protecting our borders is a multifaceted effort. The job of securing the land border falls primarily to the U.S. Border Patrol, while the job of the U.S. Coast Guard is to secure our maritime border. We do have Office of Field Operations, an important role of securing more than 300 ports of entry, and Air and Marine Operations carries out air and marine maritime environment activities and missions to detect and interdict unlawful people and cargo approaching our borders. Finally, HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, supports national security through its investigatory authorities and responsibilities. These are not simple or easy tasks. The southwest border is a dynamic place with sometimes unforgiving terrain, rugged mountains, scorching desert, high cliffs, canyons, and more than 1,000 miles of river. The maritime border is more than 4.5 million square miles of vast ocean patrolled by a limited number of assets, providing cartels with enormous expanses of territory to which to conduct their illicit activities. Congress has appropriated billions of dollars to shore up our border defenses. Today, we have an impressive array of technology, infrastructure, and personnel deployed to keep the nation safe. Despite our best efforts, we have seemingly made little progress, though, over the last few years to secure the border. Most recent reports and testimony suggest that between our ports of entry, we are a little more than 50% effective at stopping people from crossing the border illegally, and narcotics continue to pour into our communities unabated. But on the other side of the border, the adversary, the Mexican drug cartels, operate a wide-reaching network. Nothing moves in or out unless the cartel Plaza Boss says so. Cartel presence, influence, and power throughout Mexico is ubiquitous. Corruption is endemic. Local law enforcement in Mexico often find themselves ill-equipped to handle the vast amount of cartel activity. Smuggling drugs and people is a billion-dollar business, and the individual in charge have one goal in mind: make as much money as possible delivering illicit narcotics, people, and other assets across the border and into the United States. Obscene profit incentivizes the cartels to be entrepreneurial and innovative in the tactics they use to successfully smuggle their illicit cargo. For instance, we know they conduct extensive counter-surveillance activities against our agents. They place spotters or scouts on hilltops and use the high ground to guide the drug loads away from agents and other detection assets. Sophisticated and deep tunnels that include the use of ventilation systems and rail cars to expedite the movement of drugs have also been used. And we've seen a proliferation of unorthodox methods of smuggling, such as the use of propane-powered double-barrel cannons in my district and around in other areas to shoot hundreds of pounds of drugs over the fences and barriers. Ultralight aircraft, difficult to detect on radar, have been used under the cover of darkness to fly drugs over the border, dropping it very quickly and then returning undetected to Mexico. And in my district, authorities broke up a complicated smuggling ring recently in Cochise County. The criminal network specialized in drive-through operations that used vehicle convoys laden with thousands of pounds of drugs to cross remote parts of the border. They used scouts, encrypted communication, specialized codes to avoid detection, and it was not an amateur operation by any means. To the contrary, it was a sophisticated criminal enterprise with advanced tactics designed to thwart law enforcement at every turn. This is the nature of the adversary that we're facing along the border. San Diego was once one of the busiest sectors for illicit traffic in the nation, but concerted efforts in the 90s and early 2000s included additional barriers and manpower brought the situation under control. But nonetheless, because the cartels are nimble, they responded by using small open-hulled vessels called ponga boats to push the drug loads farther and farther off the coast of California. I'm sure we'll hear about that from you today, Errol, and making them more difficult to detect, track, and ultimately interdict. Semi-submersibles, painted blue to blend in with the ocean, barely visible above the waterline, have been used to deliver multi-ton cocaine loads from Mexico. To Mexico. Their ultimate destination is cities and towns across our nation. As we increase our focus as Congress on securing the border, which I welcome, we have to be clear-eyed about the dangerous and sophisticated threat that we face from these adversaries on the other side. Rest assured, the cartels will not sit idly by while we increase manpower, technology, infrastructure, or adjust our strategy. and that will threaten their business model. They will adapt. They will innovate, like they always do, and just plain sometimes outsmart us if we do not leverage the full power of all of us together to focus on countering the cartel network. I want to thank the witnesses for being here today, this morning. I really look forward to your testimony and the discussion ahead. Before I recognize the ranking member, I ask unanimous consent that the gentleman from New York, Mr. Katko, be permitted to participate in today's hearing.